Welcome to the Geeks Addict. This is a spoiler-heavy, chapter-by-chapter overview of Star Wars: The High Republic Light of the Jedi. Star Wars: The High Republic Light of the Jedi was written by Charles Soule. Now, this is the first novel in the High Republic era. It takes place roughly 200 years before the events of the Skywalker Saga. Now, I do have a spoiler-free review. I'll put a link down in the description box below. And I also want to thank Del Rey for sending out this copy for me to review. So you've been warned, this is a heavy spoiler chapter-by-chapter overview. Most of the time I'm going to be doing a voiceover, so you won't have to see my ugly face reading my notes through this whole thing. Now, there are 3 parts to the novel. I'm going to separate this into 3 separate videos, one for each part. So let's go ahead and get into Chapter 1. Part 1, The Great Disaster, Chapter 1. Hedda Casset, retired military fighter pilot from the Malastare-Sullest Joint Task Force, is now a captain of a freighter. She's strict and thorough, checking over her ship multiple times to ensure all is well. Now, she's transporting over 9,000 passengers or settlers from the inner core worlds to the outer rim. She makes her way back to the bridge after checking the safety and security of specific items on board. Once she makes it back to the captain's chair, alarms blare. The report comes from the navigator. As they're flying through hyperspace, something all of a sudden is in their path, and they have seconds until impact. Hedda Casset takes manual control of the ship and just barely scrapes by the large object in the hyperspace lane. She thinks of the passengers on her ship and hopes that all will be well. The ship starts to rumble in turbulence. The freighter cannot handle it. Casset makes eye contact with the first officer, and he salutes her, and before he could speak his mind, the bridge is ripped apart. Hedda Casset did not survive. Chapter 2. Scan techs monitor the space lanes in the Hetzel system. Mervyn Getter was one of these scan techs, and he wanted to get off work just a little bit early to go see the Twi'lek that he had a crush on. He had finally worked up the courage and planned on asking her out on a date. He thought about asking his boss to get off work a little bit early, but then decided against it, and he'll just work his full shift. Now, on his computer system, several anomalies appeared, coming into the system way too fast with no sign of slowing. More and more kept appearing. He and his supervisor decided that they should go ahead and sound a system-wide alarm. Sadly, before they could make it to a shuttle and evacuate, a fiery object enters the atmosphere and destroys everything. Sadly, Mervyn Getter did not get to tell that Twi'lek that he had a crush on how he felt about her. So, remember, tell the ones that you love them. Or it could be too late. Chapter 3. On Hetzel Prime, Minister Eka looks out a window, soaking up the view from his office. The entire planet was used to grow crops. The objects tearing through space and peppering planets and satellites are starting to be very worrisome for this guy. The alarm from the scan techs had no message attached. It's still unknown whether the event is from some new enemy or if it's a natural occurrence. Minister Eka is annoyed with his security chief, Borda, because he can't produce a reason for this event. Now, Borda reminds him that because of the minister's budget cuts, the security division was downsized, but they're working very hard on finding an explanation on what exactly is going on. Now, if it was truly an enemy, why aren't the defenses across the system being targeted? The ability to defend themselves has not been disabled. Things are not looking good. Minister Eka makes a decision to call for a system-wide evacuation. Now, data shows that objects approaching will be apocalyptic. Eka tells his people to leave. He will stay behind and broadcast to the people in hopes to keep them calm. So he's decided to just go down with the ship. His broadcast was sent and many people ignored his message. Many others panicked and made for spaceports as space travel wasn't the most popular or affordable thing out in the agricultural world of Hetzel. Panic breaks out. It's quite horrifying. Another broadcast was sent out through the galaxy, a call for help. In the minister's office, hope had filled the room when communication was finally received saying, "This is Jedi Master Avar Kriss. Help is on the way." Chapter 4. The Third Horizon, a ship from the Republic with Jedi aboard, arrives in the Hetzel system. Avar Kriss, Jedi Master in her 30s, is on the bridge with Admiral Krenara, who had ceded control to the Jedi in the efforts to save the people of Hetzel. Smaller vessels peel away from the Third Horizon, little other ships setting out to find and rescue the people of Hetzel. The Third Horizon is part of the Republic Defense Coalition, or RDC. The ship had just come from a small ceremony at the newly built space station called the Starlight Beacon. Now, Avar Kriss sat on the floor and focused on the Force, which brought her above the floor, levitating in meditation. Chapter 5. Master Loden Greatstorm, Twi'lek, and his apprentice Bel Zettifar enter the Hetzel atmosphere in their small Jedi ship called a Vector. The mission was simple: help. When Bel asked his master where they should be going, Loden Greatstorm told Bel to reach out with the Force and guide them. So he did. They arrived at what appeared to be a compound with a large starship locked behind a wall, while citizens were trying to break down this wall and get through, but armed guards weren't having it. The two Jedi know that this starship would be very useful in getting many people to safety. They open their Vector cockpit bubble as they were flying over and jump out. It was time for them to see what they could do for the desperate people. Chapter 6. The Long Beam. It's a type of ship. Call sign, Aurora 9. It attempts to fire missiles at one of the anomalies soaring through the system. The idea is to break it apart into smaller bits before it causes too much damage, killing far too many. The Aurora 9 fires all 6 of their missiles, and each one missing its target. Laser fire would be completely useless. The anomaly crashes through a solar array, which is a unique giant satellite with workers on board. Now, the captain of the Aurora 9 decides that they should go over to this solar array to see if there are any survivors. They need to go on a rescue mission. Chapter 7. The presence of Avar Kriss could be felt by the other Jedi. This is a unique, rare talent. She could detect the Force bonds between other Jedi and strengthen them and use those bonds as a sort of communication network. A Duros Jedi Knight, Tiami, is about to sync up the weapon systems with other Vectors and one of the long beam ships that came with the Jedi. Now, the weapon system in a Vector requires a lightsaber key to be activated. It's pretty interesting. And we learn that Tiami might have the ugliest lightsaber in the entire Jedi Order. It may be ugly, but the Kyber crystal that she found on Ilum years ago works just fine. Now, the plan is to connect all of the weapon systems to create one giant, large blast, all concentrated on the target. The Jedi could use the Force to see the object, where it was, and where it was going. As the weapons systems were all being linked together so Tiami could take lead control, she was focused on a large anomaly headed towards the Fruited Moon. Now, billions of lives would be lost if this anomaly hit that moon. Just as she and the other Jedi were about to pull the trigger, a Wookiee Padawan sensed many fearful lives on this anomaly. And that's when the Jedi are suddenly aware that the anomaly is a large chunk of a ship with many lives on board. Chapter 8. Avar Kriss is still in deep meditation, aware of where each Jedi is located. Her thoughts focus on Elzar Mann, her oldest and closest friend. Now, they grew up together, learning and growing in the Force as Jedi. Elzar is a bit of an oddball, always approaching the Force with different techniques. He never made it to the rank of Jedi Master, but Knight suits him just fine. Avar shifts her focus to Tiami, and then the realization of what the mysterious anomalies truly are. She then comes out of her trance and speaks with Admiral Krenara and other bridge officers. She informs them that the mission is still the same, but now many more lives are needing to be saved. Yes, it complicates things, but nothing is impossible. Chapter 9. Loden Greatstorm and his Padawan had jumped from their Vector to the ground outside of a large gated home. The crowd outside wanted in, seeing a large spaceship on the other side of a wall, but armed guards prevented the crowd from entering. Loden Greatstorm landed first. Bel, his Padawan, was falling and flailing. Bel suddenly thought of Master Yoda and thought that maybe Yoda was so powerful in the Force that maybe he could just turn off gravity if he wanted to. Bel, he was falling, and he was pretty certain he was going to die. Lucky for him, his master used the Force to slow his fall. Then Master Greatstorm makes a couple jokes about more training and jumping from the tallest tower in Coruscant for practice. Then the Jedi approach the gate and have words with one of the guards. The Jedi tell them that they need to let people in so they may board the ship. Loden Greatstorm uses a little mind trick, and the guard starts to open the gate until speeders behind the crowd start firing at people gathered around. Wait, what kind of republic is this when the Jedi are forcing someone to open up their gates to their personal property to allow a bunch of strangers to board this person's private ship? Yeah, situation's a little bit dire, but still, sounds like they're overstepping their bounds here, right? Chapter 10. Joss and Pika Adren, husband and wife, had volunteered for this rescue mission. If you would like to know more about them, they were in a short story in Insider Magazine, issue 199. I also have a little review, link in the description. Joss is piloting the Long Beam Aurora 3. He has an idea on how they may be able to stop the wreckage hurtling to the fruited moon. The Long Beam is equipped with tow cables, so he contacts the Jedi, which he calls space wizards. He contacts Tiemi and tells her his plan. Joss believes that the Jedi will most definitely need to assist in attaching the cables. They want to catch the debris and slow it down and move its trajectory. If they are successful, they will save billions of lives. Chapter 11. 4 ships filled with around 3,500 people were attempting to leave the Hetzel system. They thought it wise to stay close together in case one of the other ships needed assistance. Bad idea. All 4 ships were obliterated when debris came out of hyperspace. Avar Kriss could immediately sense the silence of all the lives lost. A smaller chunk of debris crashes into the sea on Hetzel. No lives lost here, at least not until the waves would decimate the coastal regions. Avar Kriss feels that there's just something else wrong. Something is off. Something in the Force was missing. She focused. She opened herself up to listen deeper to what the Force was trying to tell her. She hoped that what they were doing in the Hetzel system would be successful and not fail. Chapter 12. Captain Bright of the Aurora 9 successfully attached to the Sun Farm satellite that was damaged earlier on in the story. He and his crew will do a quick run-through of the place to look for survivors. And they do find some. Chapter 13. Bell Zettifar and Loden Greatstorm activate their lightsabers and run to the coming speeders, firing on the crowd. Then there's this neat little moment with Bell's perspective of a lightsaber. I'll probably make another little video about that, and then I'll attach that down in the description. The land speeders stop when their fire is deflected by the Jedi lightsabers. The raiders inside the land speeders begin to fire their personal blasters at the Jedi. Some get out and run into the crowd of the others gathered around. Loden, he deflects a blast directed at Bell's face, and then the guards took the distraction and actually fired on the Jedi themselves. With the raiders fleeing into the crowd, Loden uses the Force and plucks each one of the villains up from the crowd. Then he slams them back down to the ground. They are alive, but unable to do any more harm to other people. Loden then Force pushes the gates open, and the crowd rushes in to the ship. That's when Loden and Bell both sense uncertainty in the Force. They receive this uncertainty with that link provided by Avar Kriss on the Third Horizon. Chapter 14. Avar Kriss is now studying a projection wall. Things are starting to look a little bit better. Situations are being taken care of, and solutions are being made. Admiral Krenara receives a call from the Chancellor of the Republic, Chancellor Soule, on Coruscant. Krenara would deliver the good news. With the mention of Coruscant, I'm a little confused because I'm pretty sure in Alphabet Squadron Shadowfall, it was mentioned that Troith was the head of galactic politics a few centuries ago, meaning before the Galactic Civil War, the Skywalker Saga. So that being said, Troith does not appear anywhere in this book. I'm a little disappointed with that. But Avar still couldn't pinpoint that void in the Oh yes? Yes, she does. She sees an object on the projection wall. Something was headed towards one of the suns in the system. She asks an officer what it is exactly, and the response was, one of the fragments. No living beings on board. We can ignore it. Avar still feels unease. She wants more details about the object. Full attention was then given to it by one of the techs. It's discovered that the object is a huge container leaking fluid, and that fluid is liquid Tabana. Admiral Krenara reveals that now things couldn't be any worse. The large container of Tabana was headed straight toward an R-class star. If that thing ignites, it's not going to be pretty for anyone. Chapter 15. The long beam piloted by Joss and Pika Adren, along with the 3 Jedi vectors, were flying in formation, chased after and caught up to the burning wreckage that turned out to be a modular passenger compartment, or a temporary passenger compartment that can attach to cargo ships. Now carefully and with much anxiety and stress, the Adrens and the Jedi pull off Joss's idea. The tow cables successfully attached to the passenger compartment with the help of the Force wielders. Tiemi, Metal, which is an Ithorian Jedi, Nib, Asik, and Padawan Buryaga, which is the Wookiee who sensed all the life forms, were the Jedi that helped catch the passenger compartment. And then the Jedi felt the call from Avar Kriss, saying, "Jedi, you are needed now." Chapter 16. Captain Bright and his crew have found all 7 individuals that were stationed on the Sun Farm. The satellite is not doing good, it's falling apart fast. One of the survivors on this Sun Farm is an Anzilian, which is the species of Babu Frick from The Rise of Skywalker. Captain Bright orders his crew to get back to their ship because he feels that this station is about to fall apart completely. Then a new message pops up on their comms stating that the system is to evacuate immediately. That's the whole Hetzel system. One of Captain Bright's men, Petty Officer Inneman, reaches Bright over the comm, stating that the reactor of the station was about to explode, and he's doing everything he can to keep this destruction from happening. He has to type in a sequence on a computer system. So Bright and a pill droid, it's shaped like a pill with many arms that retract from its body, head to Inneman's location. Inneman then shows Bright and the droid the sequence to keep the thing from blowing up. Each time it's entered, the time of the reset is a little bit less as it was previously. So Bright tells Inneman to get to the ship while he makes sure that the droid can perform the sequence. The droid then takes over so Bright can escape as well. When Bright is on his way out, he senses another life form. His tentacles can sense pheromones because he's a Natulian, like Kit Fisto. I probably said that race wrong. There was indeed another life form aboard the Sun Farm. He thinks about his life, his accomplishments. He goes back to the reactor computer and sends the droid to take the unconscious Twi'lek to the Aurora 9. Bright then calms Inneman and tells him the new plan. They argue briefly, but Captain Bright's rank ends the argument. Petty Officer Inneman and the crew branch off of the Sun Farm satellite and speed to safety, and Bright is swallowed in the heat and fire when the Sun Farm explodes. Chapter 17. Avar Kriss is determined to stay on Hetzel and resolve the madness and through the Force throw the tank of Tiabana out of the sun's path. She orders the Third Horizon to leave the system. Avar communicates to all the Jedi in the system that there is only one way they can save the Hetzel system. The Jedi are to link together to focus on the object hurtling toward the sun and push the object away. In preparation, Avar Kriss uses the Force to unsheath her lightsaber. It activates and begins to spin in a circle, the green light humming. As it rotates faster and faster, the pitch rises. It helps her to focus. It's something that she calls the Song of the Force. All the Jedi in the Hetzel system pour their focus and strength into the target. So much power is expelled that some Jedi pass out, even leading to their death, crashing their vectors. One even collapses and falls from a tower, falling to his death. This attempt fails. They only nudged the tank slightly, but they try again. Even more focus, more power, and finally, success. The Tiabana tank is pushed, altering its course away from the sun and into the void of space. The Hetzel system is saved. Chapter 18. While the Hetzel system was saved, further along in the same hyperspace lane that the Legacy Run had broken apart in, more fragments appeared and fell out of hyperspace in the Abdalis system. Abdalis was not as populated as Hetzel, but many still lived there. It's a swampy planet with factories and cities. One of the cities was hit by a smaller fragment, demolishing it and all of the lives that lived there. 20 million people lost their lives. The chapter ends stating that this was the first emergence. Part 1 will end with the interlude, The Nile. Abdalis was a disaster. Many folks tried to flee the planet. One of the big companies run by Lawrence Gorello loaded up a few freighters with his employees and their families to move outside of the system to continue working temporarily. Now, in space, they were met by a menacing cloud-like substance flashing like a wild storm. A bolt of energy shot out and hit one of the freighters, killing its power. The other freighters kept moving, entering the cloud, and saw several ships. All of the ships looked vile, spiked and blocky. 3 bright slashes were painted along the side of those ships. The small convoy of freighters had no military ships among them. They were helpless. The Abdalisians recognized these unwelcome ships as the Nile. The Nile were demented. They were raiders who killed and kidnapped. Much about the Nile was unknown, but one thing that was definitely known is that they are extremely brutal. Lawrence Gorello and many others watched in horror as several of the Nile ships surrounded the immobile freighter and shot cabled harpoons into its hull. They then boosted their engines and ripped the ship apart, sucking the cargo and passengers into the vacuum of space. The Nihil shot another energy bolt at a freighter, but before the Nihil could do their dirty deed, the freighter exploded and took many of the small Nihil ships with it. Lawrence Garello was informed that his ship was being boarded, so he and his crew began to open up the weapons cache to arm themselves, and that's when the door to the bridge tore from its hinges, killing one of the crew members. Canisters were tossed in and immediately released a poisonous gas. Lawrence Garello sucked in the unbreathable air, lungs burning. He saw the masked Nihil enter the bridge, and he knew that it was his time to die. And that does it for part 1 of Star Wars The High Republic Light of the Jedi, chapter by chapter overview. Stay tuned for part 2. Until then, find me across all social media at The Geeks Attic. Have a good one.